Hi, this is David McCann for WebTNG. In this video, I want to look at the Oxygen Builder. This video is part 7 of a series looking at custom post types and the theme building functionality of page builders. Most of the builders looked at in this series are page builders first and theme builders second. Oxygen, however, is different. It is both a theme builder and a page builder, but I would make the argument that Oxygen is primarily a theme builder first and a page builder second. One reason for this point of view is that Oxygen disables the WordPress theme totally. With other builders, creating theme templates is an option, but because Oxygen disables the theme, creating theme templates is a requirement when using Oxygen. You'll see that when you compare this video to others in the series. For other videos, I could jump right into creating the single and archive template for the custom post type. But in this video, I need to go through the theming process first, creating the header and footer and the default templates before we even get to the templates for the custom post type. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Oxygen gives you an unparalleled amount of control and flexibility. However, what it means here is that this video will be a more thorough walkthrough of Oxygen and its theme building functionality than we've looked at in previous parts of the series. Let's begin by taking a look at the test site that I prepared. I have the 2020 theme installed. Let's go take a look at that. See, that's the only theme I have installed. If we look at the plugins, I have Custom Post Type UI and Advanced Custom Fields, which I used to create the book's custom post type. And the first video in this series walks through how I did that. If you're interested in that or unfamiliar with using those plugins, you can look at that video. I also have the WP Reset Pro plugin installed, and I'm just using that to reset the site between different versions of this walkthrough. First I walk through the text version and then I do the video version, so that makes it easier to reset the site. Let's take a look here. We have some book records entered, and if we look at one, we have our standard WordPress fields, the title, the content, the featured image, but we also have a custom taxonomy, genres, and we have 2 custom fields, a link to the author's website and the author's photo. And if we look on the front end, we can see this is what the book archive, the default book archive, looks like. You can see it's kind of a disaster. It takes up a lot of space to go through and see these books. And if we look at any one of them in particular, we can also see that the default layout for the book single is also not optimal. We have the title and an excerpt here with the meta, then the featured image, and then the full content. Now, when you first activate Oxygen, you're normally given a welcome screen where you can install a full website from the template library if you want to do that, or you can build your own, which is what we're doing. And Oxygen adds a admin menu list here. And if we go to the home menu item, this is a link to open the design library. That's the same as you would get from that welcome screen, so you can get back to it if you missed it. And then you have a templates menu, which is what we'll be using a lot. You can export and import, and then there's a settings menu here also. I like to enable the selector detector and show ACF fields for the dynamic data dialog if you're using ACF. The Role Manager tab is kind of a standard option to restrict access to the editor by WordPress roles. By default, Oxygen is going to show the editor button, the option to edit with Oxygen and some information on all of the post types, but you can remove it from some here if you want, and I guess we'll do that. Then for security reasons, Oxygen signs short codes. You have the options for that here. You can upload an icon set with using SVG images. You can put in your typekit ID, enter your Oxygen license. You can enable CSS caching to make it a little faster. This bloat eliminator, these are options in WordPress that are rarely used, many of them, and so this is just kind of a nice helper function to turn those off. These are the library settings. So we've enabled the default design sets so we can see the design sets that come with Oxygen. There are some third parties that offer design sets, so you can enable those there. Or you can even set this WordPress site to serve as a host of design sets for other sites. And so this is a nice way if you're making lots of websites, you can save some templates and then make them available for other sites. But what we're going to be doing mainly is we're going to be working in the template area. Now, as I said in the beginning of the video, Oxygen disables the theme. So we're going to have to create the default theme templates, the header, the footer, and default layouts for the posts and pages and archives. For example, because Oxygen has disabled the theme, this is what the homepage looks like. So yes, we need to create those templates. So let's get started. Oxygen has a hierarchical template system, which is really nice. And we're going to start by creating a base template that other templates will inherit from so that we can put our header and footer in the base template and don't have to recreate those each time. So we'll call this the default template. And there's nothing for it to inherit from because this is the first one. And we'll give it a template priority of 1. That'll be the bottom. And this will be a catch-all template. And we'll click Publish. And now we'll edit with Oxygen. And here we are. We have a blank slate here. A quick look around the UI. We have our Save button. We have a Manage menu where we can manage global settings, manage style sheets for the site, or look at selectors. And we have a navigation menu to leave the editor to go to the admin or front end. We'll be using this structure outline view here, which shows us the elements on the page. There's nothing here yet. This is the page or post that we're previewing. And this is the list of elements and things that we can add to our layout and page. There are several panels here. There's the Basics panel, which has sections and divs and columns and some of the basic elements for WordPress, such as a heading or text, image, buttons, and so on. There is a helper section where we have a header builder, some social icons, an icon box, a pricing box. We have easy posts, which we'll be looking at. There's a repeater element, which is pretty nice, and we'll be looking at that. There are sliders and tabs and modals and maps and so on. Then there's some WordPress elements here. There's a Pro menu. There's an element for shortcodes. There's for comment list and comment forms, for a login form, for a search form. We'll be using those. There's dynamic data, kind of basic WordPress elements like title, content, date, categories, tags, featured image, author, author avatar, custom field. There are your widgets, and there are your sidebars. And you'll notice we have no sidebar because Oxygen replaces the theme, and sidebars are usually defined by the theme. We don't have one available, so we will need to create our own sidebar, and I'll show that in a little while. There's a library, which we'll go into next, but before doing that, there's also a reusable panel here where if you saved a section, an element as reusable, it'll reuse it in your content, in your templates. So let's take a look at the library. These are the design sets that come with Oxygen. You can see there are a number of them here. And basically, these give you a head start. If we look at one, for instance, we see there are some pages. There are no templates in this one, but some of them have them. But there are also these sections and elements. And so, for example, you have a blog, predefined blog section, you have a call to action, contact forms, content, footers, headers, heroes and title, kind of team member sections, pricing, showcase, sliders and accordion, social proof, and whatnot. For our purpose, we want to start out with a header, and we want to use a pre-designed header. And we'll just take this simple one here. And there's a header. Of course, for a real site, we would replace the site logo and whatnot. But for our purposes, this is fine. Now let's go back and do the same thing. But this time, let's add a footer. So there's our header and there's our footer. Now let's create a content area. And we're going to go, if you remember, to the basics. And I want to put our content area inside a section. And I'll show you why in a minute. So I add a section, it adds it down here. And I want it to be in between. Now we can use this structure outline navigation thing to grab this and move it where we want, which is nice. And I'm going to rename that to be, content area, since it's going to be used in several templates just to make it clearer. And then I want to add into this section now our inner content area. And I'm just going to try to drag that into the section. And there we go. Now I wanted to use a section for a reason, and that's because I want every page to have the same margin at the top and bottom of every page. So that's why I did that. You can see this content section, it's just pulling in the content of the WordPress editor, but it's also a dynamic data placeholder that we can replace later on when we're working on other templates. While we're in the base template, let's go to Manage, Style Sheets, and I'm going to add a folder, and I'm going to call it Site-Wide. And then in this folder, I'm going to add a style sheet, and I'm going to call it Site, so that we have a style sheet if we want to add any custom CSS to our site. It'll get loaded here. So there's one other thing I want to do now for the base template, and that is I want to go into Manage Settings. I want to go to Page Settings. I want to set a default page width of 1200 pixels. Okay, because that's going to be our default for the page. And if we set it once here, then we don't have to go into each of these sections to set the default width. I'm done. I'm going to save this. Now let's go back to the WordPress admin. I'm going to want to have a sidebar, so before creating any templates that would use a sidebar, let's go and set that up. I have installed here a sidebar manager. It's made by Brainstorm Force. People make the Astra theme. I've used that before, so I'm going to use that. I click Activate. Under Appearances, we have the Sidebars menu. We'll go there, we'll add new, we'll call it Site Sidebar. And this shows up, this is not related to our sidebars. Let's see, we want to say sidebar, and we'll say we want to show it on all singular pages, and I think that's good. We can just say publish. Now we can go into the widget area and we can add our widgets to this site-wide sidebar. I'm just going to add, say, the calendar widget and the meta widget. So now we have a sidebar. Now I want to go back to the template area. And now I want to create a new template, and this one will be for pages. So I'll add a new template and I'll call it page single. We want it to inherit this default template, so we get the header and footer. We go into the single options. We want it to apply for all pages. And we gave the default a priority of 1. I'm going to give this a priority of 10. And we're going to put publish. And we'll go in to edit with Oxygen. So you'll notice that we have our header and our footer and our content area that we've inherited now from the default template. And that this content area is a placeholder For our page single, what I want to do is have a sidebar on the right and the page content on the left. Some people don't have sidebars on pages. It's up to you how you want to do it. So I'm going to add columns, and I'll choose this one. So I have 2 columns. I'll make this content area say 70%, and this is automatically adjusted to 30. Over in this area here, I want to add the sidebar that we created. So I go add WordPress sidebars, and here is that sidebar. So I add that. Awesome. Now I want to go to advanced, and I want to make this 100% width because that was being constrained there. And this looks good. We have these bullets here. We need to get rid of those. So what I'm going to do is give this container div here a class, and you can see that Oxygen is given a unique ID. If we click on this here, we get an option to add a class. So I'll add a class of sidebar main. And now let's add some CSS to our style sheet that we created earlier. So let's see. And I think we want to target the widgets underneath. Add some padding. So that looks pretty good. Okay, next, ready to add the content. So let's go add WordPress, and we'll put in here the featured image, and we want that to be 100% width. Our preview page, sample page, doesn't have a featured image, but many pages do. Next, let's add in the title, and let's add in the content. And let's save. We'll go to the WordPress front end and take a look. And there's our sample page. The page template was pretty easy to create. Let's keep going and create a default posts template. We'll click Add New Template, call it Posts Single. We will inherit our default to get the header and footer. We'll say it applies to all posts. We'll give it a template priority of 10, like the page template. Publish, edit with Oxygen. And this is going to be very similar to the page template, but we'll add post meta. So let's start. We're going to add our columns. Go through that same process again. Over here now, we'll add our sidebar. And we'll give it the 100% width. And we will give the div here the class of sidebar main. Okay. Now on this column, we will go and add our featured image again, make it 100% wide, and then we'll add our title. But now we want to add post meta, and you notice here there isn't any post meta element, unfortunately. Be nice to have one, so we'll have to create something. And to do that, we'll go to the basics menu. Will add a 3-column and again we have no undo, so we're going to have to delete. And we'll delete these down here. So we're back here with the featured image. We'll go and add the title. And now we're into this area here. And Oxygen does allow you to add, to nest columns within columns. I'm going to save this. And let's see if we can drag this under. There we go. I want this to be 3 columns. And now we're going to add a text widget in. And this first one will be the date. We'll say on. And you'll notice for some of the widgets, like the text widget and the heading widget, you get some alignment and font options up here. You also get an insert data option. Now this gives us the dynamic tags we can use in our templates. And so we want the date here. We're just going to go with the default format. So there's the date. Now we will add into this box, we're going to add another text widget. And this one will be for the author. Again, we'll go insert and we'll do author display name. We might as well have it linked to the author's posts. And now in this column, we'll add a third text box. And this one will be for the comment count. Insert comments number. So we'll go no comments, 1 comment, and percent comments. And we'll make it a link down to the bottom of the page. All right, now there's a lot of space taken up here. So what I'm going to do is go to each of these divs. I'm going to set this all to 0 for each one of these. Okay. And now we can make these a little smaller here. We'll make this say, let's try 25% and see if it fits. Yep. Make this one 20%. Okay, so there's our post meta. And now we want to add our post content. Great. Now let's add our comments that have been entered. Here are the comment list. And let's put some margin at the top to push that down maybe. Okay. And now we want to add the comment form under that. There's our comment form. We're going to save that. We're going to go back and take a look at that on the front end. Somehow we got 2 titles there. Refresh and go. Let's go back. How do we get 2 titles? Let's delete one. Save that. And go take a look. Good. So there's our default post template. Now let's create a default archive template. Call this default archive. And we'll inherit. And we'll say it's for all archives. We'll override this later for our books. Give it a template priority of 10. And say publish. Edit with Oxygen. I don't know if you want to have a sidebar here. We could add one. But for this purpose, I'm going to go to Helpers and add in the Easy Posts widget. You'll notice that there is an option here for query where you can choose which content type by going custom post type. You can choose styles and you can edit the PHP or CSS templates. The Easy Posts element also comes with a number of pre-designed layouts here. So let's see, let's add an archive title. So go to Basics and Heading. Let's move this up. Put it above. And now let us go and insert archive title, archives. Now let's save this, go to the front end. I think I also need to apply this to the blog post index. Now let's take a look. There we go. Okay, so there's our default archive. So now we're ready to create the templates for the books. So let's go to Dashboard, Oxygen Templates, Add New, Book Single. So we'll assign it to Books. Give a template priority of 10, like the posts and pages. Save that. Edit it with Oxygen. Okay, so we'll start out being similar to the post template. We'll add column and we'll create our sidebar as we've done before. We give this the width of 100%. And then we give the div that's holding that a class of sidebar main. Good. Now, unlike the post template, this one we want to add some columns in there. And we'll have a column like this one. We'll set this to be 25%. And in there we will add our featured image. There's our featured image, so that's good. Now over here we will add our title. I think the line height's a little large on that. Now next let's add, we're going to want to create kind of our fake post meta again. So we'll add some columns there. And we'll do a 3-column. And we're going to do the same kind of song and dance again of adding a text widget on date. And we'll make this column a little bit larger. Let's say 40%. And then in this one, we'll add a text widget, author. And then this one will be for the comment count. Make that a link. All right, now let's add our content. And under that, let's add our comment list. And there are no comments there, but we'll still want to give it some margin at the top. And then let's add our comment form. Okay, so now we have the standard fields showing. Let's add our custom fields. So under this one, we will add a text box. And we will add our taxonomy of genre. Let's see. So let's see if we can get that centered. Okay, let's add some margin to the top and bottom of that. Now let's add the author's photo. So we'll go to add an image. And there's this data item here, so we can pick our custom field. So let's go to our advanced custom field, author's photo. Let's get the original size. Good. And now let's add the link to the author's website. We'll add a button, and we will say, visit author's website. And we'll go to the link. There's a data option here also. Advanced custom fields, and we'll use link author's website. Let's give some spacing there. Margin at the top, let's say 20. Margin at the bottom, 20. Okay, so now I think we have our single. Let's save that. And let's go to the front end of WordPress. And so here's our, need to adjust that. So I think I'm going to set the text size here a little bit smaller. Let's say 14 pixels. We'll set this one to 14. And we'll set this one to 14. And now let's save it. And we'll go to take a look on the front end. So here's our single book template. And we have our custom fields. And the link works. Great, now let's make the book archive. Okay, so we go to the Oxygen templates. We do add new template. Want to inherit from default. We're going in archive. This is going to be an archive for books. And we're going to give this a higher template priority, 15, to override the default archive. Let's save that. And now let's edit with Oxygen. So now I'm going to go in and we will use a helper, the repeater. Whoops, first let's add the title. Let's add a heading and we're going to call this Book Reviews. Now let's go and add our helper, the repeater. This is a pretty amazing feature. I'm going to go here and let's add a column and we'll make it 2 columns. And this one's going to be 25%. And into this side, we're going to add our WordPress featured image. So there are images. We can see they're kind of different sizes, so we need to fix that. Make the width the same on them. Let's say 125. And I think we can make this column maybe even smaller. We'll try 15%. Okay, now on this side, we will add our title. You see this repeater widget just adds it all in like that. That's amazing. Next, we're going to add an excerpt. There isn't an excerpt option here. So let's go add a text element. And we will now go into Insert Data. And here's an excerpt. Yay. Okay, we got our excerpts. Now let's add our Read More. So we'll add a button. And let's give it, let's say, Read More. Use the data, dynamic data link, and we'll want the permalink. And now let's give it some size and spacing. We'll give it a margin of 10 at the top, 10 at the bottom. Let's just go with 10 at the top. Okay. Let's save that. Let's go back to the WordPress front end. Here are our book reviews. And if we click Read More, there's our single. That was easy, and we're done. Now, one thing I've done as kind of a test of the flexibility of the archive templating is to see if I can add a custom field. It's going to be pretty easy in this case. Let's go back and edit this. Go to Templates, Book Archive, Edit with Oxygen. And I'm going to add under this a column. And we'll say 2 columns. And over here, I'm going to put the Read More button. And in this column, I'm going to add the image. And we'll put the author's photo in there. And we'll put a width of, let's say, 100 pixels by 100 pixels. Okay, we can save that and go look at it, but you can see that it's very easy to add custom fields into the repeater element, which we can use as our archive. Before wrapping up, there are a couple of other things that I want to show you. Let's take a look at an Oxygen template, like say the default archive one. So what I wanted to show you is that in a lot of these elements, you can go in and see you can edit the HTML and PHP, the template there. Let's say, for instance, we wanted the title to go above the featured image. And there it's above the featured image. Okay, so that's a lot of freedom that we have there. And here's the template styles, the default that comes with Oxygen. That's a bit of access and control that most template builders don't give you. And it's nice to know you have that available if you need it. So in conclusion, there were a few cons that I ran into. A big one was the absence of an undo function. You saw when I was adding columns, I got things messed up and there was no way to go back. Had to start that bit of the process over again. There's no post meta element, And it would be a little cumbersome if you wanted to do things like add icons. I'm just thinking about the standard features in the customizer for a lot of themes where you can turn on and off and order the post meta elements. Oxygen is more work. You have to start from scratch creating templates, and also there are not as many pre-designed elements like you have for Beaver Builder or Elementor, Brizy, or Divi. There are also some great strengths with Oxygen. You have more flexibility and control than with other builders. Oxygen has a nice template system with the hierarchy and the ability to inherit from base templates and the priority system to override other templates. You can easily work with code like in the Easy Posts element. It's easy to work with dynamic data, both the default WordPress dynamic data like title and content and featured image, but also custom post type and advanced custom field dynamic data. The repeater element was very powerful and very easy to use. And one of my litmus tests for how flexible a page builder is to look and see if you can add custom fields to the archives, and that was very easy with Oxygen. When you compare it to other builders, Oxygen is very economical. It's $99 for lifetime updates and support and unlimited sites. And it's only $169 currently on sale if you want to add WooCommerce integration and a Gutenberg block builder. So pricing probably isn't an impediment for Oxygen, the way it can be for some page builders for their annual subscription. So that's my walkthrough and review of the Oxygen Builder. There's a text version of this walkthrough available on the WebTNG website, where you'll also find other posts in this series on custom post types and page builders. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching.